Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. I know some people are still trickling in, and we're so excited for you to all be here. I'm Swati Garg from Milo Associates, and this is our talent webinar series. We're so excited for you to join our first one of 2024 and part one of our communication series with Kristi today. We're pumped. Milo Associates, just to give a little summary about us, we've been around for 7 years. We focus on customer success, professional services, and customer support recruitment. We do all levels within individual contributors, middle management, executive search. We're very involved in the community, and we're just so excited to be here today. A little bit about me. I personally love creating things, especially if I see a gap. I went to the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. Like I said, started Milo Associates, started my personal brand, and just really excited to be on this journey with all of you. And thank you so much for being here today. We are so excited to have Kristi here today. She's one of Milo Associates advocates, and as we all know, she gives so much to the community, and we're so glad that she's spending some time with us today. When I thought of this topic, I immediately thought of Kristi. I mean, we all know she gives so much. I mean, her presentations and her nuggets are just wild, and we all use them in our day to day. And we're so excited that she's going to present so much wisdom today on today's presentation. Thank you so much for being here, Kristi. I'm going to let you obviously introduce yourself, even though you don't really need an introduction. But thank you so much for being here, and I'm going to hand it off to you.
Thank you, Swati. I'm so excited to be here, and I am really excited about this title, the topic for today, which was how to exude confidence in all engagements and communication. And so, I mean, I'm going to jump into some stories and tell you all a little bit about myself, but I want to just make sure that I'm setting the stage for what we're going to walk away with from today's conversation. So, one, I do want to just make sure that we're all recognizing the importance of developing confidence. And so, the first thing I want to make sure that we're going to talk about is how confidence makes a difference in influencing others, right? And it really does. It's all the difference. And so we're going to talk about the impact of that confidence. Then ways to demonstrate confidence in communication. I think sometimes we have a vision in our minds about what confidence looks like and what it might feel like to us as recipients of being in the presence of someone who is very confident. And so I just want to make sure that we're removing any myths from our minds, and we're really talking about how we need to show up as our most confident selves. And also spend some time talking about the fact that confidence can be learned. And we're going to talk about where you can start in developing your confidence. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with me, I do first just want to start by thanking you for taking the time out of your day to be part of this conversation. Now, we're gonna shake things up today. It is not just going to be me talking at you for the full hour. We're going to make it conversational. We're going to do some fireside chat. We're going to do some Q&A. So it's going to be a wonderful discussion. But so just to give you a little context about myself, my name is Kristi Faltorusso. I'm currently the Chief Customer Officer at ClientSuccess. We are a customer success management solution. So we help our customers manage from new to renew, that entire customer lifecycle journey. I've been in customer success now for just about 12 years or 12 years now. And it's been a wonderful ride. I started off my career in customer success as a senior customer success manager. In 10 years, made to the C-suite as chief customer officer. And I've had a lot of amazing experiences working at really fantastic hypergrowth B2B companies. So today, I'm going to share a little bit, not only about how we're going to develop confidence, but I'm going to share some of my stories. And I'm going to be pretty vulnerable today as well, because I think for those of you who do know me, right? And when I say know me, right, like maybe you've seen me speak or present, you've attended my webinars, you've followed me on LinkedIn or social media, right? So you have a perception of the Kristi you know. And I think it's important for you to know the Kristi you don't know. And so why this topic is so near and dear to my heart is because, honestly, I wasn't always as confident as I come off today. And I was telling Swati right before we got started, I was like, you know what's so funny? I think back to a very specific story. About 15 years ago, I was asked to speak at a very large conference. Now, 15 years ago, I wasn't in customer success. I wasn't in tech. I was working in marketing, actually. And at that point in my career, it actually built a name for myself in marketing, and specifically digital marketing, and even more specifically, search engine optimization. And so it was a search engine or SEO conference that I was asked to speak at. And this was the first time I had ever been asked to speak on a main stage in front of a lot of people in a very formal setting. And 2 weeks before the event, I called up the event director and I was like, I am so sick. I cannot make it. I can't do this. I want to give you enough notice so that you can find somebody else to take the topic, or I'm happy to share my deck and give it to somebody else. I was so terrified that I couldn't even get out of my own way. I couldn't even take advantage of the opportunity that was right in front of me because I didn't have the confidence to just go and share my stories, to go and talk about what I knew so well. And I let fear actually block any confidence that I had. And I feel like this is what happens to a lot of folks. And I share that story because I do think you all have this idea of who I am today. And I got to tell you, that's not how I've always been. It took me a very long time to get to a place where I felt so comfortable in who I am and what I know to show up the way that I do so confidently all the time. And so I always say that there's this notion of fear is sometimes greater than our confidence, right? So sometimes it's not that we're not confident, but our fear of how we are perceived, what others might think, right? All of these doubts that we put in our minds that may not even really exist, that fear is so much greater than our confidence that we let that triumph. We let that take over, and that blocks us from taking advantage of these opportunities and showing up as our best selves. And so I don't think it's that folks lack confidence. I think you're more scared than you are confident. And so let that sink in, let that resonate, because I want you guys to think about a moment where maybe you weren't feeling so confident, right? Maybe you were given an opportunity. Maybe it's even in a smaller setting, right? Maybe it's at a company meeting or even in a smaller meeting, right? Not even your whole company, but maybe it's a team meeting or something where you were asked to speak or talk about something and how that made you feel. And I feel like that's what it comes down to, right? The feelings that you feel, like, are you confident enough to speak about what you know in a way that is going to exude that message, right? It's going to allow people to really pick up what you're saying, and it's going to resonate, it's going to influence, and it's going to motivate, because that's the difference there. But it's not that we can't do these things. It's just oftentimes we're too scared. We can't get out of our own way. And that's all of us all the time. So I want to talk about the impact that confidence has on all of us and in all of these different aspects of how we show up in our day-to-day. And so when I think about leadership, and I'm going to give you kind of my examples of this, right? So maybe these are my things and maybe they're not your things. But when I think about confidence, right? Confidence for me as a leader, right? I lead a team, I lead out with my company, I lead out with my own efforts and my building my brand. And when you're a confident leader, folks are more likely, right? There's a sense of assurance and competency, and they're more likely to follow someone who comes off more confident. And so this is why it is so important when you're in a leadership role. You don't need to, now let's not mistake confidence for knowing everything. There's a very, very big difference, right? I, as a leader, very much know I do not know everything, but I am confident in conveying the messages. I am confident in what I am talking about. I am confident in appointing the right people to make the right decisions. That confidence is what makes me a strong leader. Now let's talk about it through the lens of decision making, right? When you are a confident person, you make decisions fast. And I will tell you, especially if you are working in tech, making decisions quickly is sometimes more important than making the right decision. You have to move fast, right? And it is that confidence that not only allows you to make quick decisions, but you're invoking, like, people trust you, right? They feel more secure with an individual who's exuding that confidence. And so you're going to be able to make decisions quicker, but you're going to get that buy-in as well, which is so critical when we think about decision making. Now, the next one is motivating, right? Think about somebody who's motivated you in your life, in your career. It doesn't need to be professional, it could be personal, right? I think about the people at my gym, like my coaches. They motivate me, and it is their confidence and the things that they say and the way that they say it. They inspire me, they motivate me. And it's that feeling, right, that a confident individual, they make me feel that way, right? So they can motivate you. So when you think about folks that have had that level of confidence, right, how they made you feel, right? You were probably inspired to do things differently and behave differently, right? You're motivated to be a different version of yourself, again, personally or professionally. That confidence is important when you have to motivate others. Now, the next one I think is really important: persuasion, persuading somebody, right? How often do we find ourselves in situations where either it's our customers, it's our colleagues, leaders, it's our cross-functional peers. We have to persuade somebody to do something different that they want to do, or that they think we should do. And folks that are more confident can be more persuasive, right? It's how they speak, it's their confidence, they instill trust, they make their message more compelling. And so people are like, wow, yeah, okay, yeah, you're right. Now I got to tell you, I think sometimes my confidence persuades people to do things more than my accuracy. It's not about what I'm saying, it's sometimes the way that I'm saying it. Now, the next one here is risk taking. Now, I tell you today, as a leader, I am far more inclined to take risks than I ever was earlier in my career. And it's because my confidence, right? I am confident in the work that I've done, the research that I have done, being able to get people inspired to go along and follow the steps, step outside of their comfort zones, right? We're taking calculated risks, yes, but if I wasn't a confident person, I wouldn't be able to do that, right? I would want to stay in a safe place that's status quo. So when you are more confident, you are more likely to take risks. And when you think about yourself as a leader, right? Leaders are often the ones who are risk takers, right? How often do you hear a CEO talk about this big, bold decision? We're going to go and do this big, grand thing. They are confident. And that confidence is allowing them to say, we're going to go do these things. Now, you have other people more calculated, don't want to do that. It's not that they're not confident sometimes, right? Like you do have just people who are generally more methodical and less risk takers, which is fine. But when you are confident, regardless of the scale of the risk, you are more inclined to take those. And then lastly, it's that credibility, right? Think about somebody who you are learning from, a teacher, a professor, maybe a course, maybe a webinar presenter, right? Folks that are more confident, it instills this level of credibility, right? You are perceived as more knowledgeable and more trustworthy. And so therefore you have the power to influence others, right? So this is what I say, like confidence is a difference in all these different scenarios. And we can visualize all ourselves in all these scenarios. And either we were the person who was confident and able to do these things, or we know somebody who has made us feel safe to follow them, or safe to follow their decisions or to take those risks, or we have felt that they are more credible. And when we think about it, it is the way that they came off, right? The way that we were able to perceive them. And that is that confidence. That is the difference. So what I want you all to think about is how you show up differently, where you have felt very confident, because those are the things that we want to amplify and emulate. So I think about how we demonstrate confidence. It involves a whole bunch of things, right? It's not just what you say, it's what you say, how you say it, how you make people feel, right? How you engage with them. And I watch myself, right? My body language, the words that I use, right? I feel like as I become more confident, I'm more charismatic, I'm more engaging. I try to pull people in to discussions, especially when it's one-on-one, and especially when it's not virtual. It's a lot easier to make it more intimate and to connect with folks. And that confidence, I think, allows you to do that. So we're going to talk about ways that we can actually demonstrate that level of confidence. So I would say it's not what you say, it's also how you say it. And this is the difference. So let's think about ways that we show up in a nonverbal way, right? So posture and body language. Now, sometimes it's hard when you're in a virtual setting, right? Like I can't stand up, I can't own a stage, I can't walk around. But I can sit up straight, right? I can avoid slouching. I can make sure that I'm actively engaging and looking into my camera and making eye contact with you all. So your posture and your body language, what that says, right? When you lean into something, those demonstrate confidence. Now think about it, when you found somebody, or even yourself, not confident, right? You might be closing your arms, you might be kind of shrinking yourself physically. And that's sometimes the difference, right? When you are confident, you're open to that conversation, you're open to the audience, you're open to that engagement. So think about that. Posture and body language actually says a lot about your comfortability, which is demonstrated through that confidence. Clear and assertive speech. Okay, I'm from New York. I'm a fast talker. Even in my most confident self, and even as slow as I can speak, I'm not a slow talker. But now I'll tell you 10, 15 years ago, if I had to present and if I was getting on stage, I was literally, I don't know, like I could do an hour-long presentation in 15 minutes because I'd be so fast and I would mumble through and I would use filler words and I wouldn't enunciate and I wouldn't pause because I was so uncomfortable, right? I just wanted it to be over. And so that is the difference, right? When you think of somebody who is confident, right? They are clear, they're assertive in their speech, they know when to pause, they know the inflections to use, they know what they want to enunciate. And so how you're saying the things that you say makes a big difference. Active listening. How many times have you been in a conversation with somebody and they're not feeling their presence? Now, sometimes it's not because you're not articulating yourself and you're doing something wrong. Sometimes it's them as a recipient, right? They're thinking, oh, what are they thinking about me? Or right, like they've got their head and their wheels are spinning and they're not actively present in a conversation. They're actively listening. Now, if you think back to maybe engaging with somebody who is very confident, or even yourself in a situation where you had felt very confident, you can just be present, right? You can be an active listener, you can be engaged in the conversation, and you're just there taking in what that person is sharing with you. And that does make a difference, right? That ability to shut off what's in your head and really be present and listen to that conversation. Now, the next one, I think for me personally, this one would be my number one of all time. Prepare and know your material. When you know what you're talking about, I feel like sometimes the other stuff doesn't matter. You're just going to be more confident. It's sometimes just knowing the content. And that's why I say, like, listen, my journey in customer success, if you would have asked me to do all the podcasts and the webinars and the boot camps and the articles and all the things that I do today, if you would have asked me to do that 12 years ago, I would have laughed. And it's not that I didn't know some of the things that I knew then. Obviously, I know more now. But I just wasn't as confident with the material. I wasn't as confident with the topics. I haven't had all the experiences that I've had now to make me understand, right? Like, I know this, I've done this, I've been there before. When you know the material, right? Any topic, whenever you're talking about something, when you know it, when you are passionate about it, that confidence, you can't even hold it back. It is just going to exude from you. The next is being able to express ideas clearly. Now, my favorite would always be like, can you explain something in like a 2-sentence, right? Or can you give your elevator pitch? Or if you've got a minute to explain something, can you express ideas clearly? Now, I always found that folks that used a whole bunch of words or just kind of rambled on, I actually felt that they didn't know the material more. I felt they knew it less, right? It was like, well, I'm not even following this conversation. You're just talking. When you can be succinct and clear and express an idea with less, I feel like it's more. And that is that difference in confidence. Using positive language. Now, when I say this, it's not cursing, right? But it's a positive language we use when we're talking, when we are referencing the things that we're saying, right? So have you ever thought about a time where maybe you said something and then you're like, oh, never mind, that was a stupid idea? That is negative language. You've discredited yourself and you've taken away any confidence. Now, if I said something and I just paused and I allow you to respond and react, even if your response is, well, I don't really get it, or that wasn't clear for me, that's fine. I can then provide clarity. I can articulate again what I was trying to say. But by me negatively making an assumption that what I delivered wasn't good, wasn't accurate, and I use negative language, it discredits me. And all of a sudden, that confidence, the way that you were trying to convey that, it's out the door. So we all have to be more cognizant about using positive language, removing that negative self-talk that we sometimes insert because it makes us feel safer, right? Like, oh, I don't want to come off too boastful, or I don't want to have an ego, or I don't want to come off as a know-it-all. So like we kind of knock ourselves down a little bit. And I will tell you, as a woman, women do this more than men. It's fact. So I want us all to do our best in every setting, in any communication. Avoid using negative language. Toss it out. You don't need that extra sentence. You don't need to make that comment. It's not adding value to the conversation. It's not creating a safer place for you. And it's definitely not helping your confidence. Smile or positive facial expressions, right? Think about how you're engaging with people when you smile, right? When you have a positive facial expression, you're drawing people in, you're comfortable, you're confident. So think about what your face is saying. If I looked petrified and scared and sad and panicked, that visually is going to come across, and that is going to send part of the message, right? Again, it's not always what you say, it's how you say it. Then you want to take initiative, right? And when I say take initiative, it's not take initiative in the conversation. It's sometimes just taking initiative to invest in developing the skills that you need to be more confident. Sometimes it's even as like taking initiative. It could also be, volunteering for things, right? How many times have you found yourself in a situation where someone, maybe it's a boss, maybe it's in a team meeting, oh, I'm looking for somebody to do X, Y, and Z. Raise your hand, volunteer, lean into it, take that initiative. It shows that you're confident. Even if you don't know what you're doing, you'll figure it out. Guess what? We always do. We figure it out. Somehow we get it done. Take initiative, invest in yourself, take those chances, because those are the things that will allow you to have the experiences to get better. And lastly, admit mistakes. I probably more so than I should. I love to talk about my failures. You wanna know why? Because I feel like not enough people do. So I will always be the first to say, oh, I did this really poorly, but now I won't do that again, right? It's kind of like, let me share my life lessons, because one, I think it makes me human, right? It allows me to show my authenticity, and allows me to create a platform that says, yes, I've done this and I've failed, but guess what? I've done it something different and I've also succeeded. So I have those experiences, and it makes me more of an authority. It also makes me humble, and it also makes me real, and it makes me a person. And those things are part of how I come across more confident. So don't be afraid to say, I messed up, or I didn't get it right, because that's part of your journey. And those things will help you develop that confidence over time. Now, how can you be more confident? Let's think about this for a moment. First, I need to be very clear. If you are somebody who does not feel confident today, you can build this, okay? So we're gonna work on this. You do not just show up one day and you're a confident person. Like I said, 15 years ago, I was canceling opportunities because I was so scared and I lacked that confidence, okay? It's something that can be learned. You can build it, I promise you. Now, all I am ever trying to do is figure out, where can I get another speaking opportunity? How big can the audience be? Because I want those opportunities. I crave it. I am drawn to it. I love it. I didn't love it before. I have different level of confidence in myself. So let's talk about what we can do. The first is build competency. Now, if you recall on my last slide, I talked about like the knowledge, the prep, right? The knowing your stuff. Build confidence and competency. So when you know something, you're going to be more confident about it. Like I said, I couldn't be as confident about speaking about the topics I do today 5 years ago, even 2 years ago. I didn't have the same experiences. My level of competency, I was still growing and I'm still learning. And I am still growing and learning today, which means I will continue to learn, which will hopefully continue to contribute to me building my confidence. So if you want to develop your confidence, get comfortable with the things that you want to talk about, or that you have to talk about, quite frankly, right? Think about starting a new job, right? Maybe your first 30 days on a job, you're not going to be as confident as you are 3 years on the job. What makes the difference besides time? It's your knowledge, it's your experiences, it's your competency. So think about that. If you invest in learning and understanding the things that you're going to be talking about, the confidence that will come, right? Think about something you're passionate about in your life. I will tell you, when I'm not talking about customer success, I am talking about Orange Theory fitness, I am talking about running, I am talking about fitness or health or eating or something. Those things I'm passionate about, but I've invested so much in my knowledge and learning about it. It's not just doing the things. I take those things serious, right? Like I want to understand, how does my body work? How do I react to foods? What foods are good for me, right? Like I have competency in those areas, and then my passion, you merge those two. If you are confident and passionate, forget it. Confidence, all-time high. Number 2, you want to build your confidence, expand your comfort zone. If you are staying in this little box here every day, you will never be more confident than you are right now. You have to take risks. You have to step out. You have to do things different. Listen, I'm going to tell you something. If you are not somebody who like actively posts on social media today, maybe that's not your thing, and that's cool too. but go out and like post something. When I talk to people who come to me for mentorship and guidance all the time, it's usually folks who are like, oh, I want to build my brand. I know all these things. I'm scared. I don't have a voice and I don't know what to say. And I'm always like, wait, your fear is posting something on social media. Like that's what we're scared of. Get out of your comfort zone. Just do it. What is the worst that can happen? I have a 15-year-old daughter. She's gonna be 16. And I always ask her, I'm like, what is the worst that can happen? Like, let's play that game. And I'll tell you, every time she gives me her worst case scenario, and I'm like, is that really that bad? Is that like, does that feel like it's life ending? No. So I say that to you all too, because it's the same advice. Nothing you can do is going to be so bad that you shouldn't take the risk, that you shouldn't do the thing. So please find a way every day, step out of your comfort zone, do something that makes you uncomfortable. Now, I will tell you, if you start to do more of that personally, being able to do it professionally, it is a lot easier. So for example, for me, again, I'm gonna use my fitness stuff, sorry guys, but I work out every day. You know, this morning I did a 6 o'clock class here. I'm in Utah this week. So 6 a.m. class over at Orange Theory out here. And, you know, I went a little bit faster on the treadmill. I used a little bit of heavier weights today than I would normally use, went a little harder on the rower. I stepped out of my comfort zone. And when I do those things personally, it reminds me that I can do these things. And when it comes to work and my professional career, I already have the confidence that I know I can do things that are outside of my zone. I can do hard things. And so I start to build that level of confidence because I've tried things personally. Your first leap professionally, if you are scared of the impact, sometimes you can try those things personally first. Number 3, learn from confident individuals. My favorite thing to do ever is to watch certain people speak, listen to certain people's podcasts or their webinars, because I want to emulate them. It is so easy to start to see people's body language and the way people talk and the way they enunciate and their pace, right? So when you find folks that are comfortable, consume their content, learn from them, because it's easy to emulate. It's easy to do the things that they're doing and start to incorporate those into your day to day. So for me, I have a list of people that I follow that I like, that I'm like, oh, yep, that's great. And I watch them and I mimic them, right? The things that I really like, the things that I feel like I can take that are still going to allow me to be me, but are the behaviors, the mannerisms, the things that I know, wow, that's the difference. Number 4, invest in self-care. Now you're probably like, okay, Kristi, what does that have to do with confidence? Everything. And self-care doesn't mean you have to look a certain way or sound a certain way. That's not what I'm talking about here. It is this investment in yourself, because when you feel like your best self, you will show up as your best self. And when you show up as your best self, that confidence is there. Now, for me, like I said, I mean, like there are certain things that I will do all the time, right? I will work out. I try to eat well. I gave up alcohol over a year ago. That is my advice, life hack, get rid of alcohol. Gave up alcohol, invested more in my fitness, in my health, more investment in myself physically, even my wardrobe or things that I just like. I don't know in the color, black. I'm confident in black. I think myself good and you feel good, you can just bring a different version of yourself. And again, looking good doesn't mean looking a specific way, doesn't mean dressing a certain way. It's what makes you the most confident version of you. But I tell you, if you invest in yourself and caring for yourself, that does translate. And then lastly, identify and challenge those negative thoughts. I mentioned this in my last slide, right? In those examples. You really, really need to pay attention to those negative thoughts, right? Those negative sound bites that we insert, we undermine ourselves. Here's my favorite, right? And again, sorry if I've got guys in the audience, I only have girl analogies, you got to stick with me here. How often does somebody compliment you, right? If you're a woman, oh my gosh, I love your shirt. Right away, you're quick to say, oh, I bought it on sale, or oh, this old thing, right? Like we can't just say thank you. We can't accept the compliment. We cannot do it without inserting these like little negative things to like pull ourselves down. I have no idea why, but we do it. We do it all the time. And it happens in professional settings as well, right? Like, again, my example of you maybe explain things like, oh, I probably didn't explain that well, and then you go back and you say something else. No, every time we insert those negative thoughts into our words, right? The minute those things become real, it discredits us. It knocks down that confidence. It takes something away from us. So my advice to you, every day, find something that you say and then try not to say it again the next day, right? Like one less negative thought, or pause when you say something, think about what you would have said next, and don't say that thing if it's not going to add value and it's going to be positive. So listen, I'm sure you can go Google and find 100 more things that will help you develop your confidence. But for me, these 5 things right here made the difference, right? Knowing my stuff, stepping out of my comfort zone and taking those chances, learning from people who I wanted to emulate, investing in myself, and then stopping that negative thought. So if you can start to do these 5 things, I guarantee you, wherever you are today, you will be leaps and bounds ahead in your confidence into the future. All right. So that said, Swati, you wanted to get to some chat a little bit?
Yes, I'd love that. Kristi, can you can you hear me?
Oh, there she is.
Okay, wonderful. Yeah, there's like been a little
Yes.
bit of internet connection issue, but it's been okay for the most part. Kristi, can you hear me? Oh no.
Oh,
Hello, Kristi?
okay. Sorry about that. Yes.
Okay, you're back.
Oh no, I'm not
Awesome.
gonna say.
Um,
Hello? Hello? Hello?
yeah, I can hear
Sorry.
you. No, that's okay. It's okay. Um, is this okay? Okay, we're back. I think we're okay. So,
Yeah.
that was amazing. Thank you so much for sharing your tips. I learned so much. Honestly, the audience just kept growing. So this is going to be awesome. I know some people are asking, but this is recorded. This will be on our YouTube channel next week. So feel free to watch it again and again and anytime you want, because I know I'll be watching it again. But we have some questions for the fireside chat. Also, please put your questions in the Q&A. We're definitely going to have time for those as well. So if you have any questions for Kristi or me or both of us, please put them in the chat. We'd love to kind of get started on that too. But I'm going to start off with some questions, and maybe it'll give you some ideas too. So, Kristi, thank you so much. The first question I had for you today was, how has cultivating confidence positively influenced your own professional journey and communication style?
Oh my gosh, so many ways. All right, well, let's start with some of the obvious ones, right? Me being able to develop my level of confidence has given me more opportunities. Now, we don't always say opportunities are jobs or roles, or right, I'm not translating it that way, but I'm saying opportunities to share my advice, my thought, my experiences. I get invited to webinars all the time, podcasts all the time, to write content, to develop things, to speak at events, right? And those are opportunities that have only come because I've started to work on developing my confidence, taken more chances, stepped out of my comfort zone, and been able to do more of these things. And as a result, have opened doors that wouldn't otherwise be open. Now, let me give you some examples. Over the past couple of years, I've actually had people proactively reach out to me about job opportunities I wouldn't have gotten previously. I've had people reach out to me about partnership opportunities I would not have had otherwise. I've been able to build my own brand, which has generated more revenue for me personally. These things literally all came from me being able to be more confident, take more calculated risks, do the things that would give me more exposure, and have opened new doors for me. And it literally all stems from me being comfortable enough to do these things. And the more I've done, the more doors have opened. So it does 100% translate from something as simple as you developing your confidence to being able to grow professionally. Now, listen, I think also in my day to day, being more confident, especially as a leader, especially in the C suite, I do have to persuade. I have to convince. I have to motivate. I have to inspire. I have to lead, right? All of the things that I talked about when I said confidence is the difference, it is the difference. And as a leader every day, my ability to be confident allows me to take those calculated risks, make decisions faster, persuade people, motivate people, inspire people. And so how I show up every day for my organization and for the role that I sit in and the many roles that I sit in, I think confidence has a lot to do with my ability to be impactful.
Wow, that's amazing. I mean, when you think about it, people are always thinking about how to get to that next level, how to grow, how to be more successful. And if everything comes down to confidence and it's something we can learn, which I completely agree with,
Right.
I mean, that might be the answer. That might be the answer. That's
Yeah,
amazing. I
and
love that.
honestly, I think it can make a big difference. And I don't think that people realize that
Mhm.
it's not about all the experiences you have. Like I've hired candidates who have interviewed just because I'm like, wow, like they sold me. There is something about confidence where you can sell yourself differently. And
Mhm.
so if we think about it in an interview process specifically, right? Somebody who is more confident, they're going to be more compelling, right? They're going to be more convincing, more persuasive, and if
Right.
I'm using this opportunity to visualize that person in my organization, somebody who shows up more confident, it has definitely a higher likelihood with me to advance in that process.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned that, right? And especially in customer success, right? Being customer facing, you need that confidence. And that's actually
Yeah,
why this was our first topic, right? This is so important in communication in the workplace. And I love that you said that. I agree completely. Communication and strong confidence is something we look for, in every conversation we have as well.
right.
Um, Fantastic. Are there specific mindset shifts that individuals can adopt to boost their confidence in both formal and informal settings?
Absolutely. And I think this is where we go back to and we amplify like that negative self thought, right? Like
Mhm.
you have to just keep a positive mindset. And I know that that is always easier said than done. And it doesn't need to be, I need to be positive about everything. But your ability to eliminate doubt from your mind gives you the opportunity to step into these things. Now, and I don't think this is an age thing either, right? Like I have my daughter, like I said, she's gonna be 16. My daughter is not a confident person. She is very timid. She is very shy. She's very introverted. But some of her friends, they walk around and the confidence that they have at this ripe age of 15, I'm like, you are too confident for your age. But it's crazy because it doesn't matter. But like, it's something where it's like they don't bring that negative thought, that doubt,
Mhm.
right? And it's not limiting. They don't have these limiting thoughts. They think they could do anything, which I'm like, okay, that's great, but it's also crazy. Right. So it's like this ability to just think you can instead of thinking you can't. That thought process, that mindset shift makes such a difference. It's so crazy. Like I don't think about things I can't do anymore. I think
Mhm.
about how I'm gonna go do those things. I never put barriers in front of myself anymore. I prioritize things. I have to shuffle stuff, but like it's never a no anymore or it's never a can't. It's I'll figure it out and I can go do anything I want to do, right? If I
Yeah.
want to do it, it's investing the time, right? And sometimes the time is to learn the stuff, right? To learn the competency and like put the work in to do
Hmm.
the things. But I no longer have these doubts and these negative thoughts that are prohibitive. And I think that's the mindset we need to shift towards if we want to be our most confident selves.
Yeah, I love that. I think that the kind of the focus on stopping limiting thoughts and stopping negative thought, I completely agree with. Another word I actually recently learned is to stop saying should, right? Like I should do this or I should do that. It's either like I'm doing it or I'm not doing it or I want to do it, right? Should I never really thought of should as a negative word, but it actually really is a negative because you're putting limitations on yourself when you shouldn't have any. So that was something I actually recently learned. So I would add that to your words as well.
Yeah, I mean, listen, there are definitely more bad words out there than we actually think there are.
Yeah, for sure. And then how can individuals overcome imposter syndrome and project confidence in their professional interactions, right? Imposter syndrome is such a big topic. And
Yeah.
I mean, people talk about that every day. Like, I don't think that that topic ever goes away. Love your thoughts on
Yeah, I mean, listen, this is a little bit of like for me, it took time, right? I'm not going to talk about everyone's individual journey and like I don't have the answers to solving everyone's imposter syndrome, but I'll share a little bit about my story, right? So I don't know, most of you may not know my background. So I say like, I don't like come from like humble beginnings, right? But like I had immigrant parents who came to this country. They are my dad's first generation, my mom's second generation. That my parents worked for themselves. They were entrepreneurs, owned their own businesses. Neither of them went to college. I was the first person in my family, my immediate family, nuclear family, to go to college to get an advanced education. And I only have a bachelor's, I don't have a master's. And for me, I never traveled the world, right? I didn't get a passport until I was 33 years old. I just didn't do things. I didn't see things. I grew up in New York. I grew up on Long Island. I lived in my bubble. That is what I know. It is my comfort zone. I haven't seen things. I haven't gone places. I didn't have exposure. I didn't have the best education, right? I had the education that my parents could provide for me and the one that I could earn, and that's fine. So when I started off in tech, I was now surrounded by all of these individuals that had gone to every Ivy League you can think of, that had MBAs and everything, who have seen the world, who knew how to use all three forks next to their plate. Like, I mean, just like these were the people I would sit in a room and be like, I don't belong here. I don't belong here. I don't belong here. I don't belong here. And it took years. I really mean this, years of me just showing up every day and doing the job and not focusing on those around me, or not focusing on the perception that those might have of who I am, and letting my work talk for itself. I stopped focusing on like the who I thought I needed to be to fit into this box that I thought I needed to be in to do the job, or to have the right to do this job. Instead, I showed up as somebody who just worked hard and drove impact. And after a while, I let that speak for itself. And I realized me and the people who sat in the same seats, they weren't better than me. We had different experiences, but whatever our experiences were, they led us to the exact same spot. So they weren't better, right? I'm not better. They're not better. We had different paths to get to the same spot that we both earned a right to be in. And so the minute I started thinking about it through that lens and stopped focusing on all the things that I wasn't, or all the things that I didn't do, or the things that I lacked. For example, I have a very Long Island accent. I know I talk fast. I know all the shortcomings, the things that I can nitpick about myself. I stopped focusing on those things. And I started thinking about all the amazing contributions that I bring, all the different things that I have learned in my lifetime, that the experiences that I had to contribute. And when I started to focus on it that way, it made me less concerned about the things that I wasn't, and allowed me to focus on more of the things that I was. And just allowed my work to speak for itself. Like I might not be the smartest person in the room, but I will outwork every single person in the room. And I think that anchor, play to your strengths. If maybe you don't know everything, great. What can you be the best at? Me, I will show up. I will show up at 5 a.m. I will say to midnight, I'll be a hustler. I will grind. I've got that grit. So that was my superpower. And I let that be the thing that separated me from everybody else. Eventually, you start to figure out what your thing is, and that's what makes you awesome.
I love that. Find your superpower. I think that is like one of the biggest messages people should walk away with, right? Everyone has a superpower. And once you kind of figure that out, that is your strength, that's your North Star. I absolutely love that. And how you transition into positive self-talk, right? All of that,
yeah,
right? Because we all come from different backgrounds. And I don't think one is better than the other, right? It's what you do with it and how you bring that to the table. And I absolutely love that. Thank you so much for sharing your story. I know that was really personal, and I really appreciate that. Thank you. And then I'm going to do one more question, and then I'm going to go to the Q&A. So please continue to bring your questions in, okay? How does the digital landscape influence the expression of confidence, especially in virtual and remote communication?
Oh gosh. Okay. So this is the difference, right? Like I said, I can't walk a stage. I can't have all the body language. Again, it's in my DNA to talk with my hands, right? I can't, if I had to sit on my hands, I probably wouldn't be able to give an effective speech. But virtually, right? This is the difference, that how you talk, right? Your pace, the clarity, making eye contact. I know it sounds weird, but looking into your camera, right? Makes a difference. And if I'm sitting here and I was talking facing down, it would be perceived differently than when I'm leaning in and I am talking to you, right? The other thing is this multitasking world that we live in. Going back to the active listening. When I am actively listening, I'll give you a customer conversation as an example. I make sure that my hands are seen. I know that sounds silly, but I want my customers to know that I'm not doing anything else. I am present. I am actively engaged in our conversation. And it's little things like that that will help you when you're navigating a digital world versus being in person all the time, right? Like where you can't read body language, where you don't have the sidebar conversations, the little chit chat, that follow up that sometimes happen when you're in person. So when you're isolated to just this small box world that we all live in now, you have to find ways. And I'm going to tell you, you're going to have to rely more on the how you say, the what you say, the way you say it, and then finding ways to connect, whether that be through your body language that you can use from here up, right? Making that eye contact and connecting and active listening. So a lot of the tips that I gave do still translate to this new virtual world that we're forced into, but maybe not to the same extent. So you've just got to rely more heavily on some of the tips that I provided earlier and making sure that you're using those effectively.
I love that, showing your hands. I mean, I'm also a talker with my hands, and I think that it does show that you're more just engaged, but showing them at all
Right.
times, that's not something I thought about. That's great. Thank you.
Yeah, like I said, only when they're talking, right? And I'm not supposed to be doing anything but being present in the conversation. When I just, and I'll do like a little like lean in, right? Like, but I keep my hands here. There is something about that where they know I'm not typing, I'm not writing, I'm not texting. I'm
Mhm.
here. I'm in this conversation. It's something so small, but it makes a difference.
Yeah, I love that. And I think people in the chat are loving it too. So that's awesome. So we're gonna go to Q&A. We have a few great questions. So we're gonna start with so how do you overcome the pressure of thinking you have to do or say something perfectly?
um, the more you do it, right? Like you'll just start to perfect things and you'll find your natural language. But let me tell you, like, if I had to go back and listen to any of my podcasts from, let's say, even 10 years ago, I'd probably sit there like this. Oh my God. Oh my, I can't believe I said that. Like cringe worthy, like, you're never going to get it perfect. And I think that there is something beautiful about being natural and letting a conversation flow than being overly scripted. So some people feel like they will type everything out and they'll try to memorize what they're going to say. And I'll tell you, as a consumer of a lot of content, snooze fest. I don't want to listen to somebody who's reading something that sounds scripted. I want to hear somebody's natural thoughts, and like I want to hear your pauses, and I want to hear the humor and the wittiness, and I want to hear you. I want to hear you come through. And if you comes along with or like a fumble or like that's not what I meant, like that's okay because we are human. And there is something authentic and humanizing about people that make mistakes. So guess what? Don't be overly prepared. Don't really overly scripted. Come as you, bring your thoughts. And I think when you spend less time thinking about getting it perfect, you'll actually be better than if you spent more time trying to perfect it.
I love that. Even like when I'm preparing for stuff, I do like sentences or like not like like sorry, bullet points.
Yeah.
And it just helps you. Like you have a guideline, but you're not super scripted and you can just have a
Yeah.
natural conversation. I love that tip. I think that's super important. And hopefully that answered your question. The next one is how did you manage any nerves or anxieties during those new, in quotes, opportunities or situations? Is this when your passion for fitness and wellness comes into play?
A lot of deep breathing exercises. Okay, so I'll tell you. So for me, when early days of like speaking, virtually or in public, the time I needed before I did the speaking, that was what changed. So let me explain. If I was getting on stage somewhere, I would need an hour. I kid you not, an hour before I got on stage to be by myself, to work on my breathing, to calm my nerves, to calm my anxiety. That's what worked for me. I needed to take small sips of water. I needed to pace a little bit, right? Like I needed to get my body just going. Like I found little things that worked for me that calmed me down. But honestly, the thing that calmed me down the most was being able to just get to the stage without tripping and falling on my face, which is still always my biggest fear, and saying the first word. It didn't even matter what the first word was. It is something about breaking the ice and just saying that first thing that all of a sudden, like now I'm just like, I'm in it, right? I'm in whatever I'm going to do, whatever I'm going to say, I'm in it. I've already done the hardest part, which was getting here and not falling on my face and saying the thing. So now, years later, right, my nerves are not the same. Like, in fact, now I'm like, I'll be in the middle of a meeting and 2 seconds later, I'm on a podcast or like I'm hopping on a webinar or like When I'm at an event, I'm chit-chatting with friends, and then all of a sudden I'm on stage. I don't need the same level of prep because my confidence is at a different level than it was. But for me earlier, invest in the prep that you require. Okay, so think about that for you, and it might look very different. Like I said, for me, it was time, space, being alone, pacing, breathing, sips of water. Like that was my formula. And after a while, it was like, okay, I didn't need an hour. I could do it in like 30 minutes, right? Or like 20 minutes or 10 minutes, or like whatever. It got to a point where I was like, okay, I'm going to go do this thing. Deep breath. Okay, do I look okay? Face check. Great, let's go do the thing. And that's what I require now, right? It's a lot less. So just, it's nerve-wracking. It's not, there's no recipe for this, and everyone's nerves takes control differently, right? Like I have friends who literally, I know this case, but literally will throw up before they go and speak or present or anything. And it's like, once it's done, they're fine. And like, they're back to it. Like their nerves show up differently for them. Mine was like this heart racing thing that just required a lot of deep breathing, a little bit of walking, a little bit of water. So figure out what you need and just, again, give yourself space, give yourself that time to just get yourself into the right headspace.
I could not agree more. I was the exact same way. It would take me an hour, and it was the same thing. I needed to drink water. I needed to make sure I wasn't dehydrated. I needed to breathe. I mean, it was literally the exact same thing. And over time, it's gotten to
Yeah.
be a lot less. I mean, I still need at least 10 minutes to just get into the headspace of either hosting or presenting or anything like that, but it has gone down immensely over time. So practice makes better, guys. Practice makes better.
Yeah.
So
And no
um,
one's ever perfect. So don't ever strive for that because that's a silly, that's not a goal. That's not a goal. Just be a better version of yourself.
exactly, exactly. I love that. And then can you share examples of how your confidence helped you handle challenging customer interactions or escalations?
Ooh.
Ooh, I love
Well,
this.
that's a great question. And yes, all of the time, that makes a big difference, right? I'm able to, so let's talk about this. If I was as a leader, earlier leader, so we'll say like even as like a director or a VP, if a customer was in a very heightened state of frustration, right? Like I would be more likely to make concessions or be overly apologetic or take the blame for things that weren't ours, right? I was weaker to them because I felt like that's what I needed to do to placate them and diffuse the situation. Now, with confidence over time, I understand that like actually no, I don't need to do that, right? We can hold different boundaries that are appropriate. So I'm going to give you a fun example. It's actually not a fun example at all. I actually had a customer, this is not a recent company, a couple companies ago, where I was literally on a call being berated. Now, I mean like vulgar language, like being screamed at.
No.
So I took a moment and I was like, I'm sorry, but I will not allow you to speak to me like that. I am sorry for the situation that you're experiencing. That is not our intention. However, I will not tolerate this. I would not tolerate you speaking to anyone on my team like that. As a result, I'm going to ask that we end this conversation now, and I'm happy to re-engage when you are in a better headspace. Thank you so much. And I just hung up and I disconnected. That sounds like,
Wow.
whoa, I just hung up. And like a minute, I'm like, oh my God, I just hung up on this customer. I just hung up on this customer. But like, as a confident individual, I recognize that that was not something that I would tolerate and I would allow as a person. Forget a professional. Like I have learned to hold boundaries. And like that's an extreme example, but like now even tough conversations about renewals, right? Oh, I see that our contract value is up and I feel like we didn't give value or whatever the conversation is. I'm able to hold more firm and make concessions appropriately, but like be able to stand up for what is mutually beneficial, right? I'm not a doormat anymore. And I know that sounds I don't think that I was ever like really a doormat, but I was definitely a weaker individual and made more concessions personally and professionally until I had the confidence to say, and like, no, these are the things, here's how we do this. And so I think like that's just more of how I was able to shift that mindset and navigate it as I'm able to hold firmer on boundaries and figure out ways that things can be more mutually beneficial than probably previously.
I absolutely love that. I think that's so important. I mean, I think the more confident we get, I think what the key point I felt like was really recognized, right? When you're in the moment, you're not panicking. You're like, what is you're actually like very present and you're like, this is happening to me right now and this is not okay. And
Right.
I need to change the situation. But that comes with like being present and confidence and all of the things. So I love that example. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
Hmm.
I'm going to actually end with one last question that I think is really, really great. How do you strike a balance between confidence and humility in your communication approach?
Oh, I think that I do a great job of bringing humility to my style of communication because again, I think it does humanize me and it makes me who I am. So I think I do that through humor, if I'm being very honest. So for me, I like to make light fun of myself in a way that doesn't discredit me and it doesn't bring me down, but it allows people to connect with me as a real individual. So when I think of humility for me, my style is through humor. And I like to make people laugh. And I feel like once you've made that connection, there's something about laughter that brings people together in a very special and unique way. So for me, that humility comes through how can I make someone laugh by something that I've done or that I've said that just makes it silly and allows them to see me at their level, which will allow them to internalize what I'm saying differently. So that's my approach to it is using a little humor because who doesn't need a little laughter in the day?
I agree. Thank you so much for sharing that great pro tip, everyone. And everyone has their own style, right? So it might not be humor for you, but really think about what makes sense for
Yeah.
you. Thank you so much, Kristi, for today. This has been so enlightening. I mean, we've gotten so many amazing comments in the chat. I'm already like, I'm sure I'm going to get messages right after this. And it's just been so enlightening. I think people are going to learn a lot from this and take away from this for their future. So I really, really appreciate all your time. Kristi Faltorusso, everyone. I'm sure we'll see her on more webinars and more speaking engagements. So continue to check her out. Check out our website, on KristiFaltorusso.com. And make sure to come to part 2 of our communication series on February 15th. Um, and I'm blanking on the title right now, but it was Powering Your Digital Voice. So make sure to come to that on February 15th. It's a 3-part series. We have phenomenal content, and it's really going to help you from a talent lens in your communication. And make sure to check this out. This will be next week on YouTube. So if you missed it or you want to share it with a friend, it will be there. And I'm Swathi from Milo Associates, everyone. Thank you so much for your time, and we'll see you next time.
Bye,
Bye.
everyone. Thanks so much. Thanks, Swati.
Thank you. Bye bye.